the stars, so I said yes there. Welcome, you can just okay, hi guys, welcome. I'm really excited to have you here. And so grateful to Lisa today, who is going to share some of her experiences, and we're going to nut through a bit of a strategy and kind of give you a hand in taking it to the next stage. The way that I like to roll, and I know that potentially this will make you recoil even further into the aluminium comfort of your seats, but if you've got questions or like stuff comes up in relation to anything that I talk about, please fire away, because it makes it so much more interesting for everyone involved, and also, you know, we can make it really tailored to what everyone's experiences is. I think I'm getting caught in my own collars. I can feel myself rising. So yeah, basically I totally welcome any interjection or comments or thoughts along the way, and you as well, like if you kind of don't get it. I've made notes, which is something I always do, and then I never look at them. I have a tendency to go on a bit of a tangent. But so today's topic is all about cultivating confidence. And the reason that I have Lisa here is because I really wanted to make what could seemingly look like a fairly dry, theoretical, principled topic come to life. Because this stuff is actually really exciting. It's like, it's not only how to recover from something or overcome something which might seemingly be getting in the way, like self-doubt or anxiety, or in Lisa's case there was an injury that you're coming back from, and how to kind of get yourself to the space that you were before and beyond that. It's also about optimization, so like how do we get the best out of ourselves? You don't have to be in a bad place in order to apply these principles, because it's really, yeah, it's about just wanting to be the best for yourself. And to me, this ability to emotionally self-regulate, to be able to manage your energy and your intention, and to be able to direct yourself in a way that allows you to ride with clarity and effectiveness, is the very least that we owe our horses. That's really my motivation. I think that to be able to ride and to be able to interact with such a magnificent creature is a huge honour. And we take for granted the fact that this amazing flight animal lets us sit on their back and do all the things that we do. So we have a responsibility to them to be able to manage ourselves, you know, to cope with some of the inevitable frustrations or, you know, fears or concerns that we might have, and not make that their problem. And also understand why they might be behaving in a particular way, so that we can allow them to be as emotionally agile and as happy as we ourselves would like to be. So that's a huge part of the strategy also. A part of the understanding of forming a successful partnership comes with understanding what behaviour means, and then what to do with it. So that mindfulness in the first instance is really the very first step. You may not know where to go, but if you're able to get to a place where you can recognise that your mind is taking you in an unhelpful direction, that's a point of power. Because in that moment you have a space. You have a space between you and a behaviour. You're in an observational position. And when you're in that position, you have an ability to be solution-oriented as opposed to problem-oriented. So when we're in the concern, when we're in the anxiety, when we're in the old injury, we're in the problem. And that's why often talking to someone has power in and of itself, because they are able to create that distance and see something from a different perspective than perhaps we are ourselves. So the start point is really that confidence, mental strength, emotional self-management, these are skills. You know, these are skills that we need to teach ourselves as much as we would learn the competency angle of things. And if you can recognise that and not feel deflated by perhaps some of the situations or challenges that you find yourself in, and instead switch into a growth mindset position and say, you know what, am I in this to prove or am I in this to improve? And that's a question that I'm asking myself all the time. And as soon as you ask yourself that question, it dissipates a lot of the pressure that we unnecessarily put on ourselves. I came up with that question when I went to a clinic with my horse a year or so ago, and I had all these thoughts as I was going. I thought, oh, you know, I'm taking him out, maybe I'll be expected to be this or that, and he'll be expected to be this or that, and my attention went from being very intrinsically focused, or focused on what does my horse need from me in order to be able to navigate the situation to the best of his ability, to what are they thinking, and what's that going to mean, and what will they think of this, and how will that reflect. It's totally irrelevant. It's completely outside my control and influence. And when I was in that mindset, I realized that I was out to prove something, to prove that I was okay. You know, I was okay as a person. It's not all BS what I talk about. You know, but as soon as you get into that state, you're buying into the perception of what you think other people are thinking, which is you never know that. You know, and also the reality is that in those contexts, especially in the context of these clinic environments, I think what's really hits home for me is if I see someone, and you know, our perception or our imagining that causes anxiety is always that we're imagining something going wrong. You know, if I see something going wrong, my opinion of them is actually based on how they navigate it, you know, unknowingly. You think, wow, that was tough and she did such a great job. That we might be thinking, oh my God, you know, the horse did this and that. And it's different to what is actually the reality. So that question, coming back to that, am I in it to prove or improve? If I'm in this to prove, then it becomes about me, and I see myself as a fixed entity that's either good or not good, pass or fail, you know, condemnation. Or if I'm in it to improve, then what have I got to lose? I've got nothing to lose. Because everything is possible. You know, I'm taking everything as feedback. I'm using that as a impetus, I guess, to create momentum moving forward. I've been doing seminar sessions each day with Warwick Schiller, and he tells me that I use lots of big words. So maybe if I use too many big words, just give me like a little holler, and I don't know what I'll do, but I'll try something. Make it simple. We'll see how it goes. So, Lisa, do you want to give us a kind of rundown of what brought you to what you told me? You know, so I put out the call saying we've got these sessions, and you tell me what's going on and where you want to go. And Lisa was awesome.
Okay, so 2.5 years ago, I had just purchased a new horse. I'd only rode her a handful of times. One of the rides, she reared up, flipped over backwards, landed obviously on me, trip in an ambulance, 5 weeks in hospital, had to learn to walk again for the rest, lots of broken bones, and so yeah, I mean, we've come a long way in the 2.5 years since the accident, but you know, you sort of hit a blocking point where you overanalyse everything that you're going to do. And there's no reason for it. There's nothing wrong with horses, nothing wrong with horses, quite it's alright. Yeah, I just don't want to get past that point, but I know I'm blocking myself by doing it.
Yeah.
So in my head I'm blocking it, yeah.
How do you feel like you're blocking it?
It just come up with excuses on what to do.
Yeah. So in the saddle or before you even get there?
Before I even get there.
Yeah. So what do you want to do? Like, what's your aspiration?
Well, I want to get back competing again regularly on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I just want to enjoy my riding again. It was the whole purpose of buying this horse.
Yeah.
Was because I had previous horses with injuries and all the rest, and so I thought, right, you know, go out and buy a horse and start enjoying riding again.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So this is really, there's different manifestations of this particular story, but it's a really common situation where we have someone, you know, you have an injury, it basically creates a before and after story, where it's like, before this happened, I did this and I felt like this, and after this happened, it was like this. You know, so there's this very defining event that causes us to feel two different ways, even though the actual context of the situation might be entirely the same. So, to understand what happens there, if you think about the way that your mind works, we're always wanting to work for our own positive benefit. So even though it feels like you might be working against yourself, that's never the case. It might not make sense, but unconsciously what you're doing is you are always working for a reason. So if you are not riding since that event, it's because the meaning that you've attached to that event means that you're no longer safe. in your mind, whether that's true or not. So it's just like, it basically creates an anchor. I mean, this is not going to be necessarily new information to many of you, but if you think of it this way, that every time you have a ride, you have a little room in your mind that says rides. And every time you have a fairly nondescript ride, a little brown box gets put in that room, and you just load up 100 different brown boxes for every time you have a different ride, where nothing much happens. All of a sudden you have a ride that has, oh, money's falling from the sky. All of a sudden you have a ride which has a really high emotional charge, especially negative. We always do much more to avoid pain than we do to gain pleasure. It's one of the really annoying things that we're hardwired to do. So if you have a painful experience, that box all of a sudden becomes like this huge, bright, shiny box with like gnomes dancing on top, and there's a disco ball and like lights and maybe fireworks go off in every direction. So next time you go to ride, you open that door to that room, and there might be 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000 brown boxes in the room, but where are your eyes going to go to? They're going to go to the shining point of reference that's reminding you, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that becomes the easiest reference point for your mind. It's basically a shortcut mechanism, like eating the mic. It's a shortcut mechanism, so that your mind can go, we know that that thing that happened really wasn't cool, like we do not want that to happen again. So we're just going to put like a keyboard shortcut to save you going like Alt-X, Command, Enter. We're just going to go, she presses that button, she remembers how it is, and even though she might not consciously understand it, we're going to override that, and she's just going to feel that way, so she doesn't go there again. So that's the positive benefit. Even though you'll have that feeling, and this is where we have an unconscious driver that's driving our behaviour, where you go, I know I shouldn't feel that way, but I just can't help it. Like, I just don't know why I do that. I'm sitting on my horse and I freeze up. I know there's no reason why I freeze up. Or I go out and I think I want to ride and I just can't. Even though I know, it's like the frustration where you're battling with two parts of yourselves. That's because there is an unconscious process that's driving that behaviour. So there's two approaches that have to actually take place, and I don't really subscribe to just one thing. I think that there are lots of very effective processes from all different ranges of therapeutic, contexts and that sort of thing. But in this case, we're not going to talk about it extensively in this session because it won't be helpful. But there are trauma-based practices with like hypnotherapy and NLP and those sort of things which can really help you realign things quite fast. But the facet of it to understand is there has to be two different approaches that work simultaneously. There has to be an unconscious program which is allowing you to upload effectively a new app to your phone. So if you think about your mind as a phone at the moment, and it's just the programs that you're running aren't useful. You've created a mental movie of an event which is no longer applicable to your present circumstance. However, that's the tape that's running. That's the tape that you keep seeing, and that's the tape that you keep bringing forward. It's called something. It's called emotional addiction, which is basically you wake up and you remember everything that happened yesterday, and then you have a feeling that you get attached to, and even if that feeling isn't serving you, there's a certain clarity or a certain certainty that you're going to feel a certain way when you go out there to ride. And the more you feel that, the stronger the neural networks become in your mind, the easier that is for you to default to, and the harder it is for you to detach yourself from that and think of it as a behaviour. Like, if you've thought about it for long enough, what tends to happen, and I won't lump you into this box, but what tends to happen with lots of riders I work with is they think they're broken. Like, this is me that's like, I can't do this anymore, this is a thing. This is just a program that's running that's not serving. If you can think of it like that, then you actually give yourself a little bit of power to operate with something. Instead of thinking, oh gosh, it's part of me, I'm never going to do it again, like nobody else feels this way, look at them all jumping those massive jumps, and that's not the case. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's understanding the unconscious drivers, and then understanding how, on a conscious level, we've also repeated a behaviour that's strengthened that pathway. So chances are, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you've had one fall, but you've relived that fall many, many times in your mind. Yeah. And you've thought about it and you've talked about it with people, and then you've thought about it some more, and then you've thought about more what happened rather than what you want to happen. So every time we have a thought, Did anyone, I'm sort of scanning around trying to get a grasp of the age group, did anyone have like a wooden desk at school? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, thank you. And if you had a biro, you could actually like scratch a groove in the desk. So imagine, just pretend if you don't have a wooden desk that you know what that would be like. And every time you have a thought, you're taking the pen and you're scratching a line on the table, the same groove, yeah? This is like a neural pathway. So you think about that event, it happened once, that's one line. But you think about it maybe 10 times that day, and then you think about it like maybe 20 times that night, and you talk about it, and every time you do it, you're scratching a new line on the table, the same line. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until that's a groove. And then if you think about a thought that comes up about writing, and it's going to pick the easiest channel from A to B. It's like rolling a marble, and then it clicks into the deepest groove, and A to B becomes that channel, that thought process. And the immediacy of that is that thought process creates a feeling, yeah? And that feeling allows you to feel a certain way, that neural network becomes stronger. So the saying is that neurons that fire together wire together, they become like clusters. So it's like a little muscle. You've made that a really strong thought process. And so even though you've only lived it once, unconsciously you've lived it many, 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 many times. And so each time you have that thought, you have an increase in pressure, yeah, an increase in anxiety. It's because the experience starts with the thought of the experience, not the actual event. So if Lisa's washing up on Monday night, and you may not need to ride till the weekend, and you get a text going, "Hey Lisa, are you coming for a ride on the weekend?" And you think, "Oh shit, yes?" And like you have that feeling of like, doesn't feel good. That's actually unconsciously, you've played out the ride already. You've seen something not good happen. There's been a little bit of pressure, and you've done nothing about it, but you've just kept washing up. Seems like that's no harm, right? That hasn't done anything. And then you think about it again that night, and then maybe before you go to bed, you have a little think about it, and then you just try and read your book, and you go to sleep, and your husband goes, "What's wrong?" You go, "Nothing. No, I'm fine." And then you think about it over the week, and that's like the pressure cooker's increasing, yeah? Because with the thought becomes the feeling that that event is real, and then by the time Saturday comes, you're already so full up that you see the horse and it's like, you have like a little implosion because that event has been lived so many times in your mind that the actual actuality of that is too much pressure to cope with. Do you follow what I'm talking about? Yeah. So your ability to dissipate the situation and to deal with it begins with the thought, well away from the horse. It begins with the actual thought of that in your mind because that thought creates a physical representation. So what we'll do today is a breath exercise that makes this really tangible, because I want to do some stuff which you can actually go away with today rather than like, well, we could do this in a private coaching session, or if you join my program, you can do, well, it's like, well, great, it's not going to help us while we're sitting here. So we'll do some of that stuff today, and just know that there's other stuff out there if you ever feel that you want to investigate it, okay? So, going down that road, what is it then that you could do, you think, when you have that thought? Is it anxiety that comes up when you think about writing, or what is it, if you could specifically get to the idea, or is it fear? What do you feel like, or is it just nothing, you can't even really pinpoint it at the moment?
I guess it's fear of reliving what happened again, and if I had to go through everything that I went through, you wouldn't want to do it again. Yeah.
So there's two things to consider here. Sometimes our fear is valid. You know, like Lisa's horse reared up and flipped over on her. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen, and like, I wouldn't want that to happen. Nobody wants that to happen. So the very first thing we want to clarify is like, are you safe? Like, are you in a position now where you're safe? Because that's the very first port of call. Like, if you're not safe, I'm not going to say, "Lisa, we're going to visualise, and then you're going to go out there and I want you to jump on, and it's going to be fine." Like, no, it's not going to be fine. It might be fine, but like, maybe not. So it's like, okay, what caused that situation? You know, like, is that rusher attacking? You know, sometimes rusher attacks, your horse like freaks out. It's one of those things. It was non-preventable. It was just the thing. It's very unlikely to happen again. So that's context, you know. Then we're like, okay, it's your mindset, we need to get you in place. If it's like, I went to a competition, this is what he does, you know, he rears, then we're like, okay, we've got a situation where our horse is unable to deal with pressure. He's unable to manage himself. It's not the end of the road, but that has to be taken care of. So the work that I'm talking about today, we're going to assume that Lisa is safe. Yeah? We're going to assume that she's taken care of that side of things. And so now what we're working on is the mindset side of things. Is that okay? Yeah. Please don't discount the fact that your fear may be valid. And you know, there's a reason why you feel the way that you do. So we're going to work on that. So what I want to give you is something to actually dissipate that. No, we're going to start in a different place. Can you remind me to come back to that though? Sorry for those of you who've been through this before. We're going to talk about fruit. So on my hand, I want to. Can someone nominate a fruit? I've used a mango, a banana, and an apple. I need something else. A banana. A pear, thank you. I really wanted it to be round, so I'm really appreciative of that, thank you. So on my hand is a pear. It's probably the best pear you've ever seen in your life, and it just so happens that you love pears. So right here is a pear. It's got this amazing green blush, and you're like, it's still got the leaves on the stalk actually, and it's quite heavy, but you know that when you bite into that pear, it's going to be like the perfect consistency, the juice is going to be amazing. And actually, I'm just going to slice the pear in half, and it's split into two, and you can smell that amazing fruit. It's almost, I don't think pears grow on a tropical island, but if they did, that's where you'd be. And it smells amazing. Actually, a little bit of juice has just dripped down onto my hand. You can smell the pear, and you can feel what that would feel like actually. It's a little bit wet on top, as you would imagine. And then I'm going to give you a piece of pear, and you're going to take it, and you're going to bite down on the pear, and you're going to taste what that would taste like, and it's just fresh and fruity, and it tastes like summer, and then you're going to swallow it, and it just feels great. So what happened then, for a lot of you who really bought into that exercise, is that you would actually be able to smell the pear. Your body would start to get ready to eat the pear, so you have a bit of saliva, you sort of start to prep for that. And you'd be able to see the pear in my hand, even though you know there's clearly no pear. So consciously, you know there's no pear, but unconsciously, your body's gone, roger that, pear coming at you, 12 o'clock, get ready. Because we've spoken the language of the unconscious mind, which is via the sensory system. You know, what do we see? What do we taste? What do we smell? What do we hear even? And what's happening every time you think about your horse ride, you're seeing yourself maybe having the accident or after the accident or some kind of precursor to the potential of that accident. You see what you don't want to happen. You know how that feels. It really feels terrible. I feel that impending feeling. I don't want to feel that feeling. I'm going to try and avoid that feeling. You hear the conversation that you're having yourself. I don't want this to happen. And so you feed your unconscious mind all of that information. And so unconsciously it goes, happened again. We've clocked it. And this is how we experience anxiety. We take ourselves to a future space where we imagine what's happening with enough sensory detail that we clock that as real and we feel it. We feel anxious. That's how we create feeling in our body, through a thought process that has enough sensory information to clock it as real. Now the beauty of this is that we're using our superpower for evil instead of good right now, because we can do the same in the other direction. So one of the amazing reprogramming techniques that we have is visualization. And in the beginning, it can be difficult to really create a visualization practice if you're coming from a place where you've experienced quite a lot of harm that you can actually buy into. It's like, if someone has had their horse going on the wrong leg enough times, even when you close your eyes and visualize that you go on the wrong leg, you know, it's like, it's really annoying. So how do you override that because that feeling's become so programmed? So you want to start with something that you can put thought and feeling behind, yeah? So that's the alignment that we're always looking for. You can have a thought, but if you don't feel it, it doesn't feel true. And usually you have a narrative of the itty-bitty shitty committee going on in your head going, whatever, that's bullshit, you know, she doesn't really know you. It sounds a bit wacky, I don't actually know if we should buy into this, but you know, some of you will be having that conversation now. But what you want is, even if you can't imagine, what would be your ideal riding situation right now? Like, what would be the visual if you could conjure that up?
a nice relaxed horse.
Yep.
You know, you can control everything around you, which field though you can't.
So what's the setting? Arena, beach.
Yeah, arena.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What colour is your horse?
Arena.
Yeah. You're after my own heart.
She's bay.
Bay.
Yeah.
So there you are, Lisa. You're on your horse right now. And the way that you want to create a situation is you want to be fully associated to the visualization. So we're not seeing Lisa and the horse over here trotting around like on a movie screen. Lisa's seeing the horse out in front of her, yeah? So you're on your horse right now, you see your amazing mare. Mare's bay neck coming out, you've got the reins in front of you, do you wear gloves? You're watching the gloves, you can see as you look down this amazing harrowed arena and you feel so accomplished right now. And you're trotting, do you like trotting or cantering? You're trotting around and wow, you can feel that trot, it's so elastic. And just moving underneath you and you're like, is anyone watching? Because I hope someone's watching right now. This feels, usually no one's watching when it feels like that, you know what I mean? You're like, has anyone got a camera? No one. And so you feel that feeling, you see the horse out in front of you, you see that there's a slightly like warm tinge to her neck and you know that she's really paying attention because you can see her ears flicking back and forth, and when you put your leg on you feel the trot just get a little bit higher and lift underneath you and move you forward, and the feeling and the conversation you're having is, wow, this feels amazing, I'm so excited that we've got to this place, and she feels so great, and maybe I've got a friend on the sideline going, wow, Lisa, she looks amazing, and you're like, roger that, and you're trotting around and it's all great. This is the visualization, yeah? Not like, I'm sitting there and I'm trotting with my horse. It's like, you've got to allow yourself to actually get to that place. Now, the thing that happens commonly in this situation is it feels scary to visualize something going right.
Yeah.
We've trained ourselves to become expectant of the wrong thing, and we don't even let ourselves dream about the possibility of it going right. So we give ourselves emotional catch nets where we go, yeah, we're going to give it a go, but we'll probably stuff it up. You know? And you think, and you go, oh. Like, and so if it happens, then you're like, see? You know, you don't let yourself marinate in that positive possibility. So the place that you want to get to is, at the moment, you are observing a whole pile of stuff that is your reality. And people say, get real, keep it real, be realistic. But all reality is the current manifestation of everything that came before. It's like catch-up time. So the decisions that you made, the actions that you took, the effort that you put in, the people that you talked to, everything that came to create your experience in the past has created what it is you're looking at right now, yeah? And the only way to create something different from that is to actually step back and go, this might be my experience, but is this what I want to keep going with? Or do I want it to be something different? And the way that it becomes something different is you have to start to think something different. The thought has to be different, and this is where the manifestation of the visualization, I get in trouble for worrying for that, but that's where it has to be, it has to begin. You have to actually be comfortable with the thought of it going right. And if you can recognize that in that fruit exercise, your unconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and imagined. So you want to create an imagined future that is actually, that's the first step of it coming to life. You have to be comfortable with that and create it. Now, the reason this is really important is we can only ever move towards something. We can't move away from something. And Warwick talked about this morning, he stole my example. Where he's like, I want you to not think about a blue tree. I don't, under any circumstances, think about a blue tree. And I don't want you to think about the 3 little yellow birds that are sitting to the top right-hand corner of the blue tree. I don't want you to think about those at all. Don't think about it. There is absolutely no way I want you to think about the green grass underneath the blue tree. So don't think about the blue tree, the 3 little yellow birds, and the green grass. It's impossible, right? In order to not think about it, you have to think about something else. So you have to go towards something else. Can you see what I mean? So in order to not think about your accident, you're thinking about your accident. In order to not feel anxious, you're thinking about being anxious. In order to not think about your accident, you have to think about, you have to let it motivate what you want. So it's like, if this is what I don't want, what does that tell me about what I do want? If I don't want to feel fearful anymore, I want to actually feel relaxed and calm. But if I'm really concentrating on not feeling fearful, I'm concentrating on feeling fearful, inadvertently, yeah? So you have to say, what is it that I want to feel, and how is it that I can move towards that? That's the very first part of the puzzle, and that comes with then creating the picture of what you want. So just with the pair exercise, your mind goes, okay, we've lived that too, and that starts to become the normal. And then when you go out to your horse 5 times that week, you've had a great vibe in your mind. And so you create a whole different template to start the situation with, yeah? Okay. So there's a couple of different techniques that I want to use, and the first one is to do with actually being able to tangibly do something with that feeling, yeah? So you get that sort of feeling in your body. And we're going to recognise that there's unconscious work that you can do, that your horse is safe, and that there's a strategy that we're putting in place. And I'm going to give you a couple of things that we can work with now if you're in a similar situation to Lisa. So your breath is incredibly powerful. I really used to underrate this, but I've done a lot of study into it, especially in yoga therapy days. I used to be a yoga therapist back in my early 20s and studied a lot of stuff there. And breath is amazing, and really your exhalation is connected to your parasympathetic nervous system, or your relaxation response, yeah? Your sympathetic nervous system is connected to your inhalation. And so if you feel yourself getting psyched up, or you see like a boxer in the ring and they go, or someone before they're about to have a fight, they never go, they always go, you know, it's always that's a real pump up breath. So if you want to really highlight the relaxation response, you want to highlight the exhalation. And that's a practice as well. I had someone come and talk to me at my stand about this, because we talk a lot about the breath. And she said actually equalising the breath, or equalising the, stop recording. Oh, don't worry about it, that's fine, thank you. Thank you so much. That she actually felt anxious. It created anxiety in the exhale, because exhale is also synonymous with letting go. And we hold on a lot. So you can really practice your breath. But what I want you to do is, very simplistically for the sake of today, I want you to focus on either equalising your exhalation to the length of your inhalation. So let's say you have a count of 4 counts in. I want you to think of having 4 counts out. And if that feels really comfortable, you want to start to lengthen your exhalation in comparison to your inhalation until you're at the point where it's about double the length. Yeah? And so when we're in a relaxed or a calm state, we feel like our centre is about, it's down in our bellies, it's deep down. It's about 4 fingers below our belly button. And when our breath is calm and relaxed, it's long and fluid, our brain waves correspond to it. It's like a bi-directional highway. So you can use your breath to influence how you feel, and the other way around. The way that you feel will influence your breath. So what I want you to pretend is, at the base, about 4 centimetres, 4 fingers below your belly button, is your seat of balance. It's about your centre. And I want you to imagine that from the base of that place up until about the top of your throat is like an open channel. Maybe you could imagine like there was a ball that could go up and down that channel, like it was an open channel. It might be a ping pong ball, it might be a coloured ball, it might be a ball of light. It really doesn't matter. And when you feel calm and relaxed and in control, that ball sits in that place, yeah? So what I want you to imagine is that, pretend you're in that washing up phase again, and you have that thought about what's coming on the weekend, and you feel your energy centre shift. And basically what I want you to imagine is that ball or that light or whatever you want to visualise actually moves up that channel and sits where the energy or where the emotion sits in your body. So maybe you feel it go into your solar plexus, or maybe you feel it go into your chest, or maybe you feel it go into your throat. And you recognise that, so it's not about a denial, but your job is to get the ball back into your centre. And the way you do that is with your exhalation. So it's like every time you breathe out, I want you to imagine that you're pushing the ball back down until it's sitting back down in your centre. Now when you're in a situation where you're a little bit out, so you might go out and have a conversation with someone and they just say something which makes you go, huh. You know when someone says something that you're not quite sure how to take it? And it just like alters you slightly, but it's not like a big deal. And you might feel, you think, oh, where's that sitting? And you're like, actually, it's not a big deal, but it's kind of like raised up a little bit. And that's a chance to practice. You're exercising the muscle of when you're getting interrupted and you're bringing yourself back down to neutral. So you practice breathing out until you feel the ball go back down to your seat of balance. Now, if you've got really upset, you might have to stay there for a while. You know, it might take you a while. You might actually even feel like it's impossible for you to get that ball down because you're kind of attached to the feeling. It's become practiced even though you don't want it to be that way. But if you can just practice the adjustability of it, then you'll start to get more easily able to do it when you're in situations where the environment isn't necessarily supportive. So lots of the work I do well away from the horse. I'm like, let's practice this in situations where you are just having to be in control of yourself. And then you can play with the breath, play with the ball, and then when you get on the horse, you might just jump on in. And the first time you get on, you're just going to sit there. And you're going to practice getting that ball back to the place where your seat of balance is in neutral. And then you're going to notice at that point, which is usually what happens, that you've been like this as you've got on, and you're just going to relax and you're going to get off. And that will be a success. You know, and that's your start point. You start with developing this emotional agility well away, and then you transfer that in little incremental steps to the horse. The situation is that you can easily get back to the point you were before. It just might take a little bit of time. And time is what usually creates the pressure. You know, I should be doing that by now. I should be doing that by next week. Maybe, but if you give yourself a few months, you'll get back there. And it's only a few months in the grand scheme of things. So it's like we just have to cut ourselves a little bit of slack a lot of the time. Does that help? Do you get what I mean? Yeah. Haven't really given you much of a chance to talk, have I? Did you get it, Lisa? Did you get it? Yeah. So I'll give you another example that could be really helpful because I found this really useful. And I'm going to tell you a story what led up to me deciding to do this. But my husband makes wildlife documentaries for National Geographic, and he goes to crazy places in the world like Africa, and he was making a documentary in the Kalahari with the tribesmen there, and they talk in ticks. Have you seen those guys? They talk because they don't want to interrupt the hunting, so they talk in a language that's not going to interrupt the animals. And so he was in the middle of the desert, and at that time of year, the bull elephants, the young bull elephants, get separated from their friends. They get kicked out of the family groups. And so they get all randy and full of testosterone, and they're kind of looking, there's a word for it, it's an actual thing. They kind of like roam around in little packs, and they're like, Roger, do you want to go, or should I go? And it's like, you go, you storm, go on, go for it. And so there's basically nowhere to hide in the desert. And all of a sudden on the horizon, they see this big bull elephant coming over. And Giles, my husband's like, looks at, there's only two guys there, and then the rest of the tribesmen, and they're not all speaking the same language, obviously. And then they notice that he's really coming, and they realise that he's charging, and there's really nowhere to hide. And so there's a lot of quick action that happens. And what happens is the tribesmen call them all together, they form a human chain, and then they turn and face the elephant, and they make as much noise as possible, and they walk towards the charging elephant. And what happens is it's the only option. And it also changes the perception. From the elephant's point of view, you're not one person. You're one huge person. You know, you're not a series of individual little people. And so in their mind, they have to make a decision about whether this is potentially worth them losing out on or not. And in that particular case, they turned around and walked away. So it really got me thinking that it was a really beautiful metaphor after I recovered, of course. I'm like, oh, that's great, babe. Awesome, great story. So I got thinking about it, and it's such a beautiful metaphor for fear. Because what happens is, especially in situations where we're recovering from something, we're running from it. It feels like it's behind us, and we're waiting for it to catch us. We're waiting for the feeling. It was a good day, but what about tomorrow? Maybe the elephant's going to catch us tomorrow. Maybe we were lucky today. But if you turn around and you go towards it, all of a sudden it dissipates. You know, because the reality was, it's all about perception. And so another technique I use, and I'm just going to bandy this out there because I want to give you a couple of things, is that some of us actually, if I tell you, just relax, You go, I am not going to relax. Like you do the opposite. Some of us are opposers. And when I did my hypnotherapy qualification, they do tests on you to see how suggestible you are, which is basically like to see how easily you take instruction. And I was hyper unsuggestible. I like do the opposite of what someone tells me. So if they're like, imagine that your arms are falling down, I'm like, I'm going to hold my arms here the whole day. I'm like, so I'm what's called like an opposer, and many of us are like this. It's not a conscious thing. It's like you kind of do the opposite for some reason. And so one thing that works really well for people like me, and might work for people like you, is if you find yourself getting anxious, what I want you to do is instead of waiting for the anxiety, I want you to get as anxious as possible. Like right now, I want you off the charts anxious. And when you go out to your horse, you're going to stop. You're going to get as anxious as you can on the way to the stable, and then you're going to walk a few more steps, and then you're going to get anxious as you can again. And you'll find that when you're inviting it, it's really hard. You're like, I can't do it. And you're like, do it, be anxious, you know. And so actually going to the emotion as opposed to waiting for it, you're like, actually I'm going to give it, I'm going to do anxiety every 5 minutes on my ride. And it becomes so boring that you would rather do anything than have to stop and be anxious again. So I've got a group called Goal Getters, which is part of my, if you join Joyride, there's like a separate mastermind group you can be a part of. And Jamie, bless her heart, she's a real opposer. She lives in Canada. And so I said to her, Jamie, what would be worse than feeling anxious? She felt really anxious going into canter. She's like, I hate humiliation. Like embarrassment, humiliation is like the worst thing I can think of, and that's for a lot of us, I think. I'm like, okay. So if every time you feel anxious going into canter, if instead you had to stop, jump off, and run 2 laps of the arena, what would that be like? She's like, that would be awful. She's like, she's in a big training stable in Canada, like, so there's like instructors and trainers and people, you know, with all different sorts of horses. And I'm telling her that she has to get off, run 2 laps of the arena while there's other people are riding around with their horse. And I said, no, that's what you're going to do. I said, so she did. She like, every time she felt anxious going into canter, she had to get off, run 2 laps. She's like, my instructor thought I was bonkers. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. And she said, so that was my choice, either to go into canter or to get off and run. And she did so many transitions that day that she just didn't. Because the thought, it's actually like, if you create something which makes you feel, I really don't want to do that, and that's my choice, then you actually can go into that place. So I don't know, it's something to think about when you're going into it, to actually like move into it, to like lean into it. So, what else? What is the time? I actually need to keep checking with that.
2:15. 2:15.
What time did I start? Oh, I've got 15 minutes. Okay. Has anyone got any questions in relation to this, or? Yeah. Yeah. So you don't want your coach to know that. Yeah. 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 So if I can, it's just a hearing issue, so I'm understanding. You're saying that if you're in a riding situation and you're going into canter, for example, and you feel really anxious about it, but you don't want to let your coach down, what do you do in that situation to kind of push through? So, are we working on the premise that your coach understands the situation that you're in? Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to approach it in that we tend to make things very black and white. So there's a lot that can happen between a trot and a canter. And it's like, what are you afraid of in the canter? Is it the canter? Are you anxious about controlling the canter? Are you anxious about the speed? Is it the feeling that your horse is going to do something in canter? So once we get specific about the anxiety, then we can be specific about the solution. Yeah, so those different things yield different solutions. Does that make sense? Yeah. So anxiety in and of itself, the anxiety hack is to realise that if you are anxious, you're always going to that future space. It's always the worst case scenario that you're imagining. and there's a mental movie that's happening that's creating the pair effect. Yeah? You're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're feeling it, and it's making you feel like it's happening right now. So the way that I hack that, or circumnavigate that, is to say, okay, and this would be in a situation where perhaps you're thinking about it in the lead up, but we'll get back to your question as well. You take yourself 10 minutes past to the successful completion of the event. So if you're worried about riding, or you're worried about your riding lesson going into canter, 10 minutes after you successfully have completed canter, you might be walking around on a loose rein, patting your horse, going, wow, that was really cool, and you can see your instructor in the middle and she was like, great job. Can you see what I'm doing? You actually take yourself to that place. And what's really important to realise in this situation is, and this is what I learned on my hypnotherapy certification course as well, you have to actively do the processes. Like if I tell you about the anxiety process and you're like, yeah, I got anxious but it didn't really work. It's like, but you wouldn't have done it. You actually have to actively do the processes. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because what happened to me was we were in like as part of the training, you're in like a coach-client situation, you swap out, you practice the trainings on each other. And so again, I'm like the worst client ever because I'm like, she's doing all these things and I'm thinking in my mind, it's not working, I can't feel it working, it's not working. And I'm waiting for something to come from the outside to change me. You know, like I'm waiting for like the ship to land or something to happen. And I feel bad because the person practicing is my friend and I'm like, well, I don't want paid to look bad. Like maybe I should pretend that I'm feeling all these things. And I went up to the trainer at the end and I said, I'm really sorry, I really want to do this, but I don't feel it, like it's not working. And she said, but you're actively not doing the process. You have to follow the instructions in order for it to work. And I'm waiting for something to happen. And this is what happens a lot when people come to me. It was a huge light bulb moment for me. They want me to fix them and they wait for something to happen, but they don't actively do the things that I'm telling them. Because you're the one that's controlling the feelings and the thoughts. Does that make sense? So the anxiety process has to be something that you actually buy into. In terms of in a lesson situation, if we were to ignore all the possibilities as to why it would happen and give you one thing to fix onto, it would be, okay, I'm going into canter. I want a really nice relaxed canter transition and a really nice relaxed canter. Let's say that's my goal. What is two things that I need to focus on that would maximise my chances of producing that outcome? And it would be, I need to breathe out and sit up and put my hands forward. I don't know, or legs on, hands forward. And so that gives you a proactive directive that is taking you towards what you want, as opposed to thinking, oh crap, we're going to canter, oh crap. You know, it's kind of like, and the way that I do it in my mind as well is to actively, just for a second or two, just see it happening before you do it. Yeah. So, and then buy into that. Because all you're doing is you're choosing to buy into the possibility of the bad. So let's choose, just as an experiment to humour me, buy into the other side and see what happens, yeah. And you need to override that practice because you just practiced the other. So it'll be a little bit of a reset for a while, yeah. Is there anything, I know I haven't thinking much about it, I'm sort of using your example and then hightailing it down the highway. But is there anything else that you wanted to bring up that was pertinent to your situation that you feel like you haven't kind of, well, lots I'm sure, but anything that pops up?
Just the overanalyzing, everything that could happen.
Yeah. So again, that's like a future focus projection. So the two options are to either take yourself past to like a safe place, like that 10 minutes past a successful completion. But the other thing is just to bring yourself back to the present. And questions are a really good way of bringing you back to the present in a way where you don't have to know all the answers. It's like, I said this yesterday as well, but there are 3 questions that I usually use all the time when I'm riding my horse. It's, are you with me? Where are we going? Am I soft? I say those like a mantra. So if I find myself going to that place, I'm not with them. You know, so why would I expect them to be with me? I've got to offer the first courtesy, you know. So are you with me makes me go, are you with me? And then if they're like, then I can do something to bring them back. Where are we going? Make sure I'm not, la, 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 la. It's like, we're going here, you're on my line, we're doing this. And then am I soft makes me go, oh, that's right. Like, and so I say that on loop. And it's just a pattern interrupt because basically it just takes you from that place where you're out there back here And it's just like, are you with me? Where are we going? Am I soft? It's like, and then you don't need to say it to yourself all the time, but it's just something where if you know that you have a tendency to do something, it's basically like you have the future prediction in your palm, in the palm of your hand. So what are you going to do about it? Like, if I know I do that, what can I do? Same thing. Break the pattern as soon as you become mindful, like hit delete in your mind and bring it back to something like pre-designed like that, where you're not thinking, what do I think, what do I think? It's like just one question that you can tattoo on the back of your hand or just write. Don't want to regret it when you're 70. It's like, why have you got, where are you going written on your hand? You're soft. It was worth it at the time. Yeah, but just like those directives are really good because they ask you questions which immediately cause you to search for the answers. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess like 40 centimeters is like horizontal.
Yeah.
But for me, like when I got up to 40, like I just feel anxiety that like got to 40.
Yeah.
So I didn't have it in long term conversation on Monday, which is that the same exercise is really
So the anxiety is about, you've got 40 to 40 centimeters and now you're...
it's gone up from a place where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And now do you have anxiety when you think about it? A smidge, yeah. What do you do when you get the smidge? Just leave it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that exists an issue.
Yeah. So that's one place that it starts. The other place is perception. So if you feel like you are able to, like can you comfortably jump 35 centimetres? So it's 40 centimetres like this much higher that makes the difference? Yeah. So you can play with things like your perception where you actually put all the jumps up around you to 80 centimetres, but you're not going to jump them. You're just going to ride around. And then when you go to jump, you put the jump down, and you're like, hey, look at that puppy. It's tiny. And you play with how the perception is in your mind. Because in reality, if you can competently jump that height, and your horse can, it's only actually that much higher than what you're comfortably jumping. So it might be that you put one jump at 40 centimetres and the rest are in your comfort zone, and you just do that one jump. And you do it so that you experience the spike in the anxiety, but then you don't keep spiking. This is where we go wrong. So if you have a 40 centimetre jump and a 40 centimetre jump and a 40 centimetre jump, and each of those jumps causes you anxiety, and you don't do anything in the middle, the anxiety doesn't stay the same, it peaks. And then it feels like you get to the 6th jump, and you're like, I don't know why I'm freaking out at the 6th jump, I've just done 5 more, but actually it's because you've been increasing the pressure cooker. So maybe you do 35, 35, 35, 40, give it a rest, walk around until you feel normal, 35, 35, 35, 40, until that becomes no problem, and then 35, 35, 40, 40, rest, dissipate, and then all of a sudden 40 becomes your new normal. It's that incremental increase of your comfort zone, yeah. And it's a beautiful thing because like, there is always a new level, new devil. You know, like all of a sudden 40 centimetres, in 6 months' time you'll be like, remember when I was freaking out at 40 centimetres and now I'm like a metre 40? You know? So, but this is what I mean, like it does feel like that, but you actually get to the place where it's just totally irrelevant. Yeah. So again, just focusing on what you want, because your mind's gone to what could happen if I jump that height, and that means something, which creates a narrative, and then just sort of the same principles like you say, yeah. But just that dissipation is really important. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you for coming. I know you've got lots of choice, and I really appreciate it.